Retcons are a retroactive change to the continuity of a published story, and in the Star Wars Expanded Universe, they were occasionally used to make errors or other details fit into the universe where they didn't quite fit before. Some very good examples of this are all the separate Rebel attempts to gain the Death Star plans being conglomerated into Operation Skyhook, Kukrook's death being changed to him just being wounded and in a hibernation trance in the 2003 Clone Wars, and the Imperials and Jedi Outcast being members of the Empire Reborn faction rather than the Imperial Remnant proper. One retcon that doesn't work is the character of Vergere. Hello everyone, Cade with the Legends Library here, and for a bit of preface, I just recently reread the New Jedi Order Traitor and Destiny's Ways novels, and remembered how much I love the character of Vergere. I remember reading the novels for the first time back in middle school, and being so entranced by the character of Vergere. She, like so much of the New Jedi Order series, was so different in a good way. From her initial description in the book that makes note of her alien physiology and mannerisms, to her views on the galaxy and the Force. She was always striving to make Jacen Solo expand his views on everything, and her conversations with Luke about emotions in the Jedi Code were so interesting and refreshing to read, because at the time, Star Wars was kind of stuck with black or white morals. Now, were her teachings about the galaxy being a garden, and Jacen being the gardener who decides who or what is important, were they really traditional Jedi views in line with the Jedi views on the light side and of the Force? Well, absolutely not. Were they of the dark side strictly? Well, you could definitely make that argument, but this was a very trying time for the Jedi and the galaxy as a whole, and maybe a different view was needed, a more ends justify the means type of view to defeat the Yuuzhan Vong. The galaxy was being confronted with an enemy that would only stop when everyone in the galaxy was either dead or converted to their alien religion. An enemy that Vergere had spent 50 years with, living among them and coming to some understanding about. She was sort of a middle ground that believed the light and dark were the Force itself rather than different parts of it. Her philosophy, like her alien physiology, were completely foreign to Jacen and Luke. But then, Legacy of the Force and Legacy happened, and changed her views retroactively. In the Legacy of the Force novels, during Jacen's descent to the dark side, Lumaya reveals to him that Vergere was a Sith like her, and her Sith master to boot. It is also revealed in the Legacy comics that she was also a fervent Rule of Two supporter, in addition to being a would-be Sith Lord who studied under and tried to kill Darth Sidious, and that was her impetus to flee to a different part of the galaxy and go to Zonama Sikat. On my first couple readings of Legacy of the Force and Legacy, this change to Vergere never bothered me, but as I said at the top of this video, I recently reread Traitor, and Vergere still very much captivated me, and for some reason, even more than the character had before. Maybe because I hadn't read the novel she was featured in for several years, or it could have been the superbly written dialogue, the alien description of her, the mystery, the development between her, Jacen, Luke, and Nomenor. And upon my latest rereading, I simply realized that the retcon of Vergere being a Sith is no good. It lessens her character and makes her a simple Darksider, bent on turning Jacen Solo to the dark side along with her. It takes a multifaceted, deeply written character and confines her to the normal Star Wars moral compass of light or dark, disregarding the idea of making Jacen expand his view when her end goal was just to turn him dark. Removed are the compelling arguments for Jacen to choose and act, or to become the gardener when all she really wanted was him as a Sith Lord. She's taken from being an unorthodox teacher and twisted mother figure in a way for Jacen, who both tortured and at times nurtured him, cut him off from the Force to make him use his natural abilities of empathy, to being a Sith acolyte with a few extra fancy steps. It lessens her conversations with Luke Skywalker and the Force, emotion, and her views on the Jedi Code when they are coming from a Sith, someone who would never respect the Jedi Code in the first place. She, in those passages, was never written to be a Sith, but rather someone who had legitimate critiques of the teachings of the new Jedi Order, making the retcon even sloppier. And the final thought I had, if Vergere was truly a Sith, why would she sacrifice herself to save Jacen Solo? That question made me think. Would Palpatine have let himself die to have Anakin live? No. Would Dooku let himself die for any of his acolytes? No. Would Darth Krayt let himself die for any of the members of his order to sacrifice his life for theirs? Would any Sith do this? No. That's just another place that the retcon falls short. Vergere could have indeed been Jacen's catalyst for falling, but because he was open to a new viewpoint, and then, in turn, that was manipulated by Lumaya, who unknowingly could have used many arguments of ends justifying the means as Vergere did, rather than having Vergere be her Sith master. Does this mean I dislike Legacy of the Force as a whole? Of course not. The story of Jacen Solo falling to the dark side is one of my favorites of the expanded universe, and with a few tweaks, it could have been even better and left Vergere intact as an unorthodox and compelling character, rather than a would-be Sith Lord. So, what do you guys think of Vergere? Did the retcon bother you as well, or did it improve on her story, as well as Jacen's? I'd love to hear other thoughts on this as well. Thank you all for watching. If you're enjoying the content of this channel, feel free to subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.